Hello.
I know that you are an engineer by
Yes.
profession and a technically minded person. So it was really a surprise for me when I know that you have been engaged in developing, so to say, humanitarian project. So do you agree that the project about Don Quixote, written by Cervantes, is a humanitarian project? So does
Yes.
it go along with your profession?
Yes and no. My interest in Don Quixote and Cervantes is where was the root of Don Quixote for each of the three of his sallies, which is more technical than a literary interest.
Okay. Do you agree that any project should go through certain stages? And I think the stages are the following: motive, then research, then implementation, or in your case, maybe it is
Presentation, I would say.
presentation, and maybe then a kind of conclusion.
Yes.
So, do you agree that any project goes through these stages?
Oh, without doubt, yes. And my research has really just been the biographies of Cervantes and the book Don Quixote, obviously. As Cervantes gives all the clues in the story of Don Quixote as to where the routes that Don Quixote and Sancho Panza took.
Were you more interested in the general idea of the book or in the location, in geographical links?
Oh, in the geographical links. Where were the places that Cervantes was writing about? And some of them are mentioned in the book, but the most important ones are not. So from the book you can work out distances and rough times, and then make a few assumptions and come up with the places that Cervantes was writing about. And if you link that to the biographies of Cervantes, then you can work out which places he would have known, which places he would have travelled through, and the final presentation is a map, which is my best guess at what the routes.
So can we say that still technical side of your nature prevails even in this project?
Oh, I think so. Yes, yes.
So and now can you show and say a few words about timeline?
Oh, one of the methods I used to study Cervantes himself was to take the information from the various biographies and list them into a timeline. So you start off when Cervantes was born. It's upside down now.
It's okay. It's an amateur film.
So you take from where Cervantes was born, to all the places he travelled to and lived, obtain his information on his professions, his interest in life. What was very interesting was what he was doing during the period when he wrote Don Quixote. And he says in the preface that the concept of the book came from a time he spent in prison. Cervantes spent several times in prison, but the one that most biographers believe was the stimulus for Don Quixote was a time when he spent prison in Seville for poor accounting during a time when he was a tax collector. And after that period, when he was released from prison, he couldn't make a living as a playwright because Philip II had closed all the theatres. And some biographers believe he obtained a job working in La Mancha for the Priory of St. John. And the Priory of St. John had two establishments near Argamasilla, or Argamasilla de Alba, in fact, which is one of the places mentioned in the book. So that gives a basis of what Cervantes was writing about and the area he was writing about.
So how long did it take you to make up this timeline?
Oh, not very long, really. The longest part was reading the three books that that comprises it. Also, quite a lot of research from the internet, but the internet research is very, very quick, and you don't need to write anything down. You can just copy out of the internet and paste straight into a spreadsheet.
Do you find compiling timeline for other projects as useful as for this one?
Oh yes, yes.
Is it a kind of tool, an instrument to structure the material, to structure all the information?
Well, I think any historical project, a timeline is very, very useful to put events into context with each other.
Okay. And now, tell us a few words about your expedition. Is it the right way to describe your travel to Spain?
Oh, to Spain!
Can
yes.
we call it an expedition?
Yes, I think so. Yes, travelling through Spain along the roads that Cervantes would have travelled himself gives one a great insight to what a man on a horse travelling through an empty plain, dusty, hot, would have a lot of time to think about stories, things he saw, and create the scenarios that are presented in Don Quixote.
And do you think that the character of Don Quixote is a bit ridiculous?
Oh, it's completely...
To a common sense minded people.
Don Quixote is completely ridiculous. But that was a tool that Cervantes had to use because the Inquisition was still in place. So any literature that criticised the church or criticised the state was automatically censored. So if Cervantes was putting forward quite political ideas, such as appreciation of the Moriscos, the Moorish population who had converted to Christianity and formed the bulk of the land working classes, not necessarily the land owning classes. He had to dress it up in a humorous manner with a ridiculous character. And Cervantes was also the first, or one of the first writers to use conversation in a dialogue, and he used the ridiculous character of Don Quixote with the practical character of Sancho Panza, and particularly the practical character of Sancho Panza's wife, to allow conversation of two sides.
Okay, thank you for the information.
Oh,
it was
pleasure.
really interesting. I hope tomorrow we'll continue our talk and you will tell us more about your other projects.
Okay, yes.